Welcome to the first series of video game commentaries. These series of commentaries are meant to discuss all aspects of PC games, with each series focusing on an individual game or line of games. The story, lore, mechanics, trivia, and personal experiences of each game are intended to showcase why gaming is the ultimate medium. For this inaugural series, I'd advise you, lovely listeners, to get your crowbars ready. Why? Because I'm about to discuss a game where you must run, think, shoot, and live if you ever want to discover the cryptic plot and happenings of Half-Life. You betcha. The first series will cover Half-Life, its two expansions, Opposing Force and Blue Shift, plus the PlayStation 2's Half-Life Decay. Then we'll move on from the Gold Source games to the more modern Half-Life 2 and its two episodes. It doesn't end there. Portal will be looked at as well, since it fits like a puzzle piece into the Half-Life timeline, and we'll end with Portal 2. Before we jump into that HEV suit and kick off this first episode, let's step into a time machine and set the coordinates to the Lambda reactor complex 48 hours after the Resonance Cascade.
In the meantime, this is where I get off.
Welcome to the HEV Mark IV Protective System for use in hazardous environment conditions.
Our orange-suited friend finds himself in the Lambda reactor complex. Unsure of how he arrived, the player must find his way to the dimensional portal device. However, it's never as simple as going from point A to point B. Gordon is stuck in this section of the facility until a scientist can transmit a message to the United States Nuclear Regulatory Commission. After fighting through alien and human enemies alike, the player must reposition the transmitter such that the message can be sent.
Open up the reactor complex so we can get down to safety. I'm sorry, but those doors...
If you're a fan of Half-Life, then you must like scripted sequences.
Send it already.
Like its predecessor, Uplink features many of these thrilling and narrative devices throughout the game. The animations of the scientist and security guard are good examples of a scripted sequence. Luckily, Valve didn't skimp on these for the demo.
What about this guy?
Yes, you could survive in that suit of yours. Very well. I will lower security on the satellite access elevator, and you can go up into the dome. I'll try to help you over the intercom.
Many people never played this demo version of Half-Life. It was released a few months after Half-Life in early 1999. One of the most notable things about Uplink is that this is a demo that was made from scrapped parts of Half-Life and given a new coat of paint. However, even though this was a part of Half-Life at some point, Uplink is not in the Half-Life canon. Since there's been a lot of buzz about Old Man Murray lately, it's been about 223 seconds from the start of the game to the first crate. Take what you want out of that statement. I really missed crushing roaches in Half-Life 2. Every time I heard that satisfying crunch, I would always think of Will Smith when he said,
Uh-oh. I'm sorry. Was that your auntie?
Watch what happens here. Press a button, get a soda. Innocent enough. Over-exaggerated? Absolutely. It's hard to believe whacking a soda machine could create such an explosion that it blows through the wall and bursts the steam pipe. Then again, finding an example of exaggeration isn't exactly hard. This reminds me of the game Black, where everything blows up spectacularly for no reason other than a bullet hitting something. Headcrabs. The most lovable alien parasite. While cute when viewed from the top, you can see how nasty these things are when viewed from the underside. Its beak and mouth area remind me of a Dead Space art design, despite Half-Life making its debut much earlier. Aside from its razor-sharp teeth, its innards are visible with blood smears across its beak. This reminds me of the movie Teeth. At any rate, Clone Barney won't be buying me that beer after all. Here's another example of how macabre the headcrab is. When it's infesting a host, there must be a suction which pulls the headcrab's soft body inward and reveals the host's skull. And now, shifting focus to Ken Birdwell.
Steve's AI system is just, at times, unbelievable. I walk into a room with 3 or 4 monsters in there who don't have weapons more powerful than me, but they outflank me, and I die. And it's just like, that's finally refreshing of not going into a game and completely devastating all their monsters who just act like, you know, ducks in a shooting gallery.
Everything Mr. Birdwell said is summed up quite nicely right here. At first, the coast is clear, but this is just one of those many examples where the enemy runs from you, trying to find a way to surprise you later. This is part of what made Half-Life so immersive. The enemies aren't ducks in a shooting gallery, like Ken said, but instead they always showed what seemed like reason. It was an excellent touch to enemy AI. Here's another soda machine type moment. The second after I blew these guys away, 2 things occurred to me. The first being, I just gibbed all these soldiers with a 50 cal. Another thing that's really over the top. Consider some of the other games you've played that existed around the same time as Half-Life, which featured a 50 cal at one point or another. Allied Assault, Call of Duty, pretty much any World War II era game, and ask yourself, did any of those enemies turn into a red mist of bone and sinew? There may have been some, but I've never seen them. My second thought is that in Half-Life, the 50 cal, or M2, didn't rip apart your foes. It was tame in comparison. Why did Valve change the giving of the 50 cal? Maybe to appease the folks at the ESRB? Who knows? I emailed Gabe about it, but I don't expect a response. Wait a second. What just happened? It looks like there was an execution. Kleiner's predecessor and colleagues were lined up against a wall and blasted with lead. Sequences like this are great because they don't give the player all the information that's needed to understand the whole story. Instead, the player understands the soldiers are here to kill scientists, leaving the why to be discovered later. This kind of storytelling, where you're not fed the plot, builds up mystery and immersion very nicely. Another well-placed piece of information. The soldiers are not here just to silence the scientists, but also contain the alien threat. Aside from not being able to blast through the door, that camera is a rare sight throughout all of Half-Life. You wouldn't think cameras would be everywhere, this being a top-secret, government-funded research lab. However, this is the first camera seen in Half-Life, and the rest of the cameras in Half-Life are right in this silo. Apparently the government didn't have enough cash to splurge for more. The United States Nuclear Regulatory Commission, or USNRC, is a real organization. They are the whole reason for being at the silo, since they won't allow access to the reactor. I'm grateful the USNRC never made it into the final cut of Half-Life, because it would be incredibly easy to pin this to the G-Man, regardless if it was appropriate or not. At the same time, I find their presence in Uplink interesting, because some of the security measures it lists on its website are loosely present in the game. Even though there is no exact statement of specific security measures, I bet the USNRC does have a system where you must give the regulators a call before certain areas are accessible.